We are on air.
Outstanding. All right. I call the 2,338th meeting of the Milwaukee City Council to order. This meeting is being conducted by video conference. The public has been invited to watch the meeting on the city's YouTube channel, Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits, or by logging into the Zoom video conference as an attendee. The public may submit comments in writing by email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. There will be opportunities for the public to give oral testimony during today's meeting. When it is time to take public comment, staff will monitor the email inbox, the Zoom participant list, and the Zoom chat to see if anyone would like to speak. We will take comments in the order that they are received and seen. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. Contamos con servicio de traducción al español cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad para reuniones por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Translation services are also available in other languages. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. If we are unable to continue the meeting, council will briefly meet off air to move unfinished business to the next council agenda. All right, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The City of Milwaukee respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. Announcements. City Council will meet on July 20th to discuss our goals for the next 2 years. To help with our discussion, we are encouraging the community to provide us with some goal ideas. To share your ideas and vote on the ideas of others, visit engagemilwaukeeoregon.gov. If you are not able to use the online tool to provide your ideas or prefer to submit ideas by email or telephone, email your ideas to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov or leave us a message with your ideas at 503-786-7515. There are only 3 days left to provide feedback on project goals for future use of the current City Hall building. If you haven't done so already, please take a few minutes to fill out a quick 2-question survey at engagemilwaukeeoregon.gov. As we will hear during the reading of the Juneteenth Proclamation, the Black community of Milwaukee is organizing its first Juneteenth celebration at Milwaukee Bay Park on Saturday, June 19th from 3 to 6 p.m. All community members are invited and welcome to attend. For more information about the event, please visit the community group's Facebook event page or learn more on the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov. The second Saturday of the city's curbside bulky waste disposal is coming up on Saturday, June 19th. The pickup is generally for single-family households west of Highway 224, but please check the map available on the city website to make sure that you're in the pickup area and eligible to participate. The Leading Library will be closed Monday, June 21st to allow time for staff to prepare for reopening the library the next day. Beginning Tuesday, June 22nd, the library will reopen for 30-minute browsing and computer use sessions. Computers will be available by reservation for 30 minutes per day. Face masks will be required. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage, where you will find the city calendar at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555, and staff will provide you with the information you need or connect you with someone who can help. So as mentioned earlier, our first item this evening is the Juneteenth Proclamation. This is going to be presented by a team, including Councilor Nicodemus, John Hennington, and Sabina Spicer.
I have a few words to say, and then I'm going to turn it over to John. Juneteenth represents how freedom and justice in the U.S. has always been delayed for Black people. Juneteenth is a necessary moment of observation because our government, and to a certain degree our nation and our culture, has not really acknowledged the trauma of 4 million enslaved people and their descendants. It hasn't acknowledged the impact this institution has had on this country and continues to have on this country. I encourage people to take time to reflect, learn, and educate themselves. Gaining a greater understanding of our past and the struggles of Black Americans can help all of us come together to forge a brighter future. Thank you. John, take it away.
Thanks so much, Councilor Nicodemus. I'd just like to take a moment to thank a couple of members of our community who are here tonight, members of the Black community here in Milwaukee, who have put an enormous amount of work into organizing the first Juneteenth celebration here. And I wanted to take just a brief moment to acknowledge something historic that has happened today. The United States Senate voted earlier today to recognize Juneteenth as a national holiday, unanimously. And I think that is a recognition of what Councilor Nicodemus just said, that there is still a lot of acknowledgement that needs to happen. And it's a step forward, a small step, but a step forward. There's no guarantee that the holiday will happen, but it is certainly a major step forward. And I think a moment that will be remembered some years down the line. But I wanted to welcome Sabina Spicer and Josh Freeman for joining us tonight, and welcome you to the City Council, and just thank you for your time and effort on this community event here at Milwaukee Bay Park this Saturday. If you would, Sabina and Josh, would you mind just letting the council know your thoughts on Juneteenth and why it's important that the city is cooperating with you on this event?
Sure. Hi, I'm Sabina Spicer. I'm a Milwaukee resident and lucky to be in the group of people who are organizing the first Juneteenth celebration in Milwaukee. It feels, it's a new feeling to be acknowledged and recognized as a citizen, as a person of color, as a woman of color, in anywhere in the United States, and to know that the small town of Milwaukee, Oregon, is taking steps to rectify some wrongs and to forge a better future. It just makes me very proud and happy to be a part of it, and to be a part of the history of this small town that I love now. Josh?
Hi, I'm Josh, community member, single dad. I just want to say it feels good to be working with fellow community members to get this event together and to acknowledge Juneteenth and its history. I think it's important to reflect on why we're celebrating and why it's necessary to promote these types of events for the community, and to be able to be engaged in something that's reflective of the entire community. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sabina and Josh. And it's been a pleasure working with you to prepare for the event. And we're looking forward to joining you on Saturday at the park. And now, if you will, Mayor, would you please read the proclamation?
Absolutely. A proclamation for the commemoration of Juneteenth as an annual celebration of Black African American liberation. Whereas Juneteenth is recognized as the end of chattel slavery in the United States, and whereas President Abraham Lincoln first issued the Emancipation Proclamation effective January 1st, 1863, declaring enslaved people in the Confederate States to be legally free. However, that proclamation could not be enforced in lands under Confederate control. On April 9th, 1865, Confederate forces surrendered, effectively ending the Civil War. On June 19th, 1865, Union soldiers arrived in Galveston, Texas, bringing news of the president's order freeing enslaved people 2.5 years after it was first decreed. This day has since become known as Juneteenth. And whereas Oregon's constitutional ban on both slavery and free African Americans lay the foundation for generations of economic hardship, exclusion, and discrimination against Oregon's Black African American community. And whereas through other systems of oppression such as sharecropping, Jim Crow, exclusionary and destructive housing and transportation policies, denial and disruption of voting access, and mass incarceration, the plunder of Black bodies and Black wealth continued past slavery and persists to this day, affecting the physical and mental health, safety, and education of Black African Americans. And whereas despite these obstacles, Black African Americans in Oregon have been and continue to be dynamic and vital community members and leaders within our state. And whereas Juneteenth has been celebrated in Oregon since 1945, when Clara Peoples moved to Portland from Oklahoma to work with the Kaiser shipyards and introduced it to her coworkers. And whereas the Oregon legislature has unanimously voted to recognize Juneteenth as a legal state holiday beginning in 2022, therefore, we, the City Council of the City of Milwaukee, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, do hereby recognize and proclaim Juneteenth, June 19th, as an annual celebration of the past, present, and future of Black African American liberation and those who continue to work to realize that liberation. Thank you all for your work on this. I look forward to the celebration this weekend. And Sabina, I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
Thank you for the correction.
All right. Our next item, community comments. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community members' statements regarding city business. Those wishing to speak, please raise your hand or indicate you wish to speak. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. This council has other business items on the agenda this evening. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the June 1st community comments, Ms. Over?
There is not.
Scott, do you see anybody wanting to comment?
I see no hands raised, Mr. Mayor. I see no comments in the chat, and I'll double check email. I see nothing.
All righty. And we will continue. Tonight's consent agenda includes the minutes of the City Council for May 18th, 2021 work session, May 18th, 2021 regular session. It includes a resolution amending the Planning Commission bylaws and a resolution supporting a housing capacity analysis and housing production strategy grant application. And lastly, a resolution supporting a transportation system planning grant application. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard? Passes unanimously. Okay. Council will now proceed to the public hearing items on tonight's agenda. We will then return to the business items after the hearings. So our first item is the expedited annexation of 5800 Morris Street, file number A-2021-001, an ordinance. The public hearing on the proposed annexation of the property located at 5800 Southeast Morris Street is called to order. purpose of this hearing is to take public comment on the proposed annexation. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest?
No.
Nor do I. I see none. This will be presented by our assistant planner, Mary Heberling. Please, Mary.
All right. Hello, Council. I don't think I've been in front of you in a while, so I'm back. I'm Mary Heberling, Assistant Planner with the City of Milwaukee. I don't have a presentation for you all because it's going to be quick and fast because I know you all have a lot today to get through. So the annexation is file number A2021-001. It's for an expedited annexation at 5800 Southeast Morris Street. And this property is seeking to connect to city sewer, which is the reason for their annexation proposal. The lot size is about 0.22 acres, which is around 9,657 square feet. It has a single unit dwelling on it, and it will be rezoned if annexed to R7. The annexation meets all of the relevant state, regional, and city criteria. We, the city staff, notified all interested parties and those that were within 400 feet of the property, and we didn't receive any objections by any of the necessary parties or any community members as well. We as planning recommend approval of this as well, and you as City Council have two options, either to approve the annexation or deny the annexation. And that's all I have. Do you all have any questions for me?
Have we received any additional correspondence on the topic?
No.
Okay. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed annexation? Scott, you seen anything?
No hands, no chat, and no email, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Then I will skip down. I know she asked already, but just in case something has occurred to someone, anybody have any questions? Nope. Okay.
I'll move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 12E30AD 04100 and located at 5800 Southeast Morris Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A2021-001.
Unfortunately, we have to close the public hearing first.
Oh, darn.
Got that one in front of me. You want me to do it?
Go for it.
I move to close the public hearing on the annexation of 5800 Southeast Morris Street. I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on the annexation of 5800 Southeast Morris Street. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. Public testimony portion of the public hearing on the expedited annexation is closed. Is there council discussion? Is council ready to vote? All right, Lisa, you got a practice run in. Go for it.
Okay, I move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 12E30AD 04100 and located at 5800 Southeast Morris Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A2021-001.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 12E30AD 04100 and located at 5800 Southeast Morris Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-001. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance by title only twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 12E30AD 04100 and located at 5800 Southeast Morrison Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-001. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 12E30AD 04100 and located at 5800 Southeast Morrison Street Morris Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-001.
Mr. Stoffer, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Nicodemus.
Aye.
Council President Heisey.
Aye.
Councilor Falconer.
Aye.
Councilor Beatty.
Aye.
Mayor Gamba.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0, ordinance 2203.
All right. Next, we have another expedited annexation at 9310 Wichita Avenue, file number A-2021-003, an ordinance. The public hearing on the proposed annexation of the property located at 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to take public comment on the proposed annexation. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest? Nor do I. Mr. Kelver will be presenting this one.
Good evening, Mayor Gamba, councilors. Brett Kelver, Associate Planner with the City of Milwaukee, and annexations are hot tonight. So we got this one and one more to go. So this is for the property 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue. It is currently developed with a single family residence. This is a property that desires to connect to the city sewer system, and I don't think there are really any other complications with it, I guess. So I guess I'll ask if you have any questions.
Nope. Seeing none. Brett, have we received any additional correspondence on this topic?
We had confirmation from Clackamas River Water, I think within the last week, that they had no objection to any of the annexations we're hearing tonight. So.
Okay. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed annexation?
I see no hands raised and no chat and no email.
All right. We already said we have no questions. If there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing on the annexation of 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on the annexation of 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. The public testimony portion of the public hearing on the expedited annexation is closed. Is there any council discussion? Is council ready to vote? I would entertain a motion.
Okay, I will move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 08300 and located at 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-003.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 08300 and located at 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-003. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance by title only twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as Tax Lot 1S2E30AD08300 and located at 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-003. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as Tax Lot 1S2E30AD 08300 and located at 9310 Southeast Wichita Avenue into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-003.
Mr. Stoffer, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Nicodemus.
Aye.
Council President Heisey.
Aye.
Councilor Faulkner.
Aye.
Councilor Beatty.
Aye.
Mayor Gamba.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Ordinance 2204.
And finally, I think there's only three, our expedited annexation of 5722 Front Street, file number A-2021-004, an ordinance, public hearing on the proposed annexation of the property located at 5722 Southeast Front Street is called to order. Purpose of this hearing is to take public comment on the proposed annexation. Does any council member wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest? Nor do I, and I see none. Mr. Kelver.
Thank you, Mayor. This is also an expedited annexation. One difference with this one is just its situation. This is an undeveloped, so currently vacant lot. It is on Front Street, which some of you on the council may remember from a year or two ago. I think Norm Scott came and approached the council to establish a local improvement district to help pay for the costs of the street. And this is one of the properties that will be paying its share of that local improvement district fund in order to develop. Beyond that, yeah, its only real difference is that this is one that doesn't have an existing residence on it, but the plan is to have it developed with a single family house. And it is newly addressed as 5722 Southeast Front Street.
So I
Go ahead.
I do have questions this time. One question is, I see we have 001, 003, and 004 today. What happened to 002? Do we know?
I don't know exactly. I know Mary's working on that one. I think it's maybe just in a slightly different part of the process, but I'm not sure exactly.
Okay, I'm just curious. If some drop out, some start and then don't annex, does that ever happen?
It's possible. It's not very common, I don't think. So
that kind of gets to my second question, which I gave you a heads up about, and Kelly and others, which is we're about, we're not quite to the 2/3 mark. According to the staff report, how many have annexed and how many are left to annex? We're not quite to the 2/3 mark. But I wondered if it made sense, not necessarily tomorrow, but as a project to try and incentivize batch annexations. We did that at the beginning, like we gave people a discount the first year or something to get them in the door and try and process a lot of them through. Would there be any benefit to trying to do that now, as opposed to having this just keep being by dribs and drabs as they roll in?
Sure, fair question. I will tell you what I understand about this, and I don't know if any other staff on this might have some additional information. What I understand and remember from the beginning of this NESE, Northeast Sewer Extension project, when the city constructed the sewer there, part of how we did that project was, and I don't know the details, but I think we had some maybe grant funding. We got some money to help residents or property owners. Sorry, let me back up. Everyone in the sewer extension area was kind of assigned an amount of money that they would need to pay their share, each property's share of the overall system, or their reimbursement fee. And at the time we did the project, there was some money available through what source, I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it may have been a federal grant or some kind of grant to that created some incentive for property owners to whether or not they annex, to at least to pay that reimbursement, their share of the reimbursement fee. And over the maybe 10 years of the program, every year the discount that was available went down just a little bit. And so there was obviously a lot of incentive in the beginning of the program. And we did several batches where we did, 25 properties at once, where we did a lot to facilitate that. I think we maybe didn't charge the annexation, the $150 annexation fee, and staff did a lot of the legwork in terms of pulling the documents together. Like I said, each year the amount of the percentage of the discount for everyone's share of the reimbursement fee has gone down. And I think just this past March, we finally got to, there's no further discount available. So now if someone wants to pay their share of the reimbursement district fee, they'll need to pay the whole amount. So in order to provide a similar kind of incentive for folks to pay their share of the district, and we would probably need to find some other source of money to offer. Right now, the incentive, I guess there's not much incentive. There's just the requirement to, if you want to connect to the sewer, you do have to annex to the city and pay the associated fees. Now, you don't have to annex. Again, you don't have to annex to pay the fee. But I guess, yeah, we would probably have to find some other money, some other funding out there to provide an incentive for people to kind of come in. That aside, if we wanted to just advertise an opportunity and find just maybe a little bit of funding to cover like the metro filing fee that we have to pay when annexations happen, I mean, we could maybe do a batch or two of annexations. It doesn't feel, to my assessment, is that there's not a great incentive to do that right now, because there's just none of that discount opportunity left.
So I can see that. I mean, I do think by now everybody's had neighbors who've done it, and so people are more sort of educated about what it means and all of that than they were in 2010. I don't know if there's, the state from time to time has incentives, pots of money for getting people off of septics. I haven't looked at those in a while. I mean, a lot of times they're more oriented to, rural communities and stuff, but, there may be some state money that we could tap into for that. I just sort of put it out there as something to think about, because it does seem to me like, there might be some economies of scale in terms of staff time and everything, to just kind of try and get people in and get them, get it wrapped up 11 years after it started. I mean, so anyway.
There's probably also a lot of staff time that would have to go into going after those funds. And I would be concerned about the part where annexation is not currently a goal for council. I'm not saying it's not good work, but I think we would be asking staff to take on more work. And I've seen Brett a lot lately, which is great, but I feel like Brett's pretty busy.
Yeah.
I have a process question as well. I mean, we've seen a lot of these in the time that I've been on council, and I'm interested in it. It's not necessarily I guess I'd like to see us actually, okay, maybe I'll start with a question. How much of this process do we control as the city? It looks like a lot of it's driven by Milwaukee Municipal Code. So my question is, are there opportunities to streamline this process? Do we really need to have this hearing the way that it's formatted? We now have 3 of these on the docket tonight. They do take a substantial amount of staff time. They take a substantial amount of our time. As far as I can remember, we've never done, this is probably one of the ones that maybe we've had more discussion about simply because we've got lots of process questions. I don't know that we've ever denied one. So I'm curious to know what can we do to streamline this? Not just, it's not that I don't love learning about these new properties, but this is not an efficient use of anyone's time and the applicants as well.
Fair questions. Let me give you a couple thoughts on that. One, I think I was, in preparation for this meeting and looking back at the script, communicating with Scott as a city recorder and kind of looking back at the code, I think that we could take a look at the script. And because I think the code says for expedited annexations in particular, there's not a public hearing that's actually required. So maybe we could do something, at least on that level, that if nothing else were to change, that maybe we could look to see if we could avoid just a little bit of that formality of the hearing, and maybe that would help streamline it if nothing else was to change. Another thought, just brainstorming, would be, we never really know for sure when these are coming in, and the common experience, I think, is that, a property is for sale, or maybe they have a septic system failure, which, is neither of those is easy to predict. I guess a thought could be maybe we say we'll do annexations once a quarter, or once every 4 or 6 months, and when someone needs to annex, we get them to sign we have a consent to annex form where the applicant basically agrees, they commit to staying in the process, not pulling out of the annexation process. And maybe we could kind of do that kind of batch annexation where we say, hey, oh great, it's January, you came in, you'd like to annex, and we wouldn't necessarily stop you. And this is just me brainstorming. I think we need to obviously coordinate other departments, but maybe we won't necessarily stop you from connecting to the sewer. We'll get your consent to annex form signed. We will collect the STC money and whatever, reimbursement district fee. We'll get those things just like we do in an emergency situation. And then we'll just put you into this batch, and we'll, in 3 months or 4 months, we'll come to council with however many have happened to come in that period of time. That might be another way to streamline it.
And how about actually revising the code?
Yeah, that I think that's a fair question we could look a little more into. I feel like it is in our code, but I think that it's probably also connected to some state laws, but we could check to see, I guess, if
state law dictating the level of review that it has to come before council.
Yeah, and I think that we hardly ever have what's called a non-expedited annexation. That I think the code's pretty clear that would require a public hearing, and some of what sometimes could make a non-expedited situation is you don't have 100% of the property owners of the territory annexing who've agreed, and or you weren't able to get the number of voters that you're supposed to have to do that. And so that kind of on its face feels like it would require more process. The expedited, I think it's still a city council ordinance that is required to adjust the territory of the city. So
yeah, that's kind of my question, and that's where my head's going on these. I'm talking specific. I'm not talking about big annexation question where we have to go out to voters. That's completely different. I'm talking about these. This is what we've done the most of, and these. And I so my question is really, is there some housekeeping we can do on this code? That if there's no public hearing even required, then I'm not sure why this can't be a director level decision with a appeal. Obviously, there's still, there would still be notification requirements, I don't know, maybe. And if there are, then that can go through a process similar to some of our other review processes where it's a director decision, appeal to, city manager, ultimate decider LUBA. I don't know, but it seems like there's a process here that we've sort of created potentially. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe all of this is required by state, but if not, if it's under our control, my question is, can we change it?
Yeah, we could check. We could double check to make sure we understand. My sense is that it does probably require an ordinance, which only the council can adopt. But we can certainly look into that to see if we are in fact doing it the most efficiently as we can.
But if it doesn't require a hearing, it could easily be put on consent agenda. So
Well, are you able to adopt ordinances through the consent agenda or no?
Consent, but it could be on a business item.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, you're never really having anyone. We even tell the applicants they don't have to show up to this. There's never testimony. So, yeah, I think that's fair that we could look at ways to streamline this.
Okay.
The expedited annexation is a creature of statute, so we would just have to make sure that anything that we propose to change meets our obligations under the state statute.
And
I think there's some great ideas have been posed tonight by Brett and some great questions. We just have to review those in the context of looking at the statutory framework to make sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dot all the I's and cross the T's.
Absolutely. And Brett and Mary and everybody, I don't mean to suggest that I don't like seeing you. I do.
Yeah, understood.
All righty. So, Brett, have we received any additional correspondence on this topic?
Nothing beyond what I mentioned earlier. No.
Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed annexation?
See no hands raised, no chat, and no email.
Council, do you have any more questions? All righty. If there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing on the annexation of 5722 Southeast Front Street.
A second.
It has been moved and seconded to close the public hearing on the annexation of 5722 Southeast Front Street. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard or seen. Passes unanimously. The public testimony portion of the public hearing on the expedited annexation is closed. Any council discussion? Is council ready to vote? None, then I would entertain a motion.
I move the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing the tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 02800 and located at 5722 Southeast Front Street into the city limits of the city of Milwaukee, file number A 2021-004.
A second.
It has been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 02800 and located at 5722 Southeast Front Street into the city limits of the city of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-004. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance by title only twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 02800 and located at 5722 Southeast Front Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-004. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, annexing a tract of land identified as tax lot 1S2E30AD 02800 and located at 5722 Southeast Front Street into the city limits of the City of Milwaukee, file number A-2021-004.
Mr. Stocker, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Nicodemus.
Aye.
Council President Heisey.
Aye.
Councilor Falconer.
Aye.
Councilor Beatty.
Aye.
Mayor Gamba.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0. Ordinance 2205.
Thank you to the council for the discussion and the ideas. We'll see what we can learn about this and if there's a way to streamline it. Appreciate that.
Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you guys keep doing on these. It would be great to be able to streamline your end as well. All right, our next item is building code adoption ordinance. Good night, Brett. This will be presented by our building official, Samantha Vandergrift.
Good evening, Mayor, councilors. Samantha Vandergrift, building official for the City of Milwaukee. Before you tonight is the dangerous building code. Well, it started out as the dangerous building code and it morphed into a complete rewrite of MMC 15.04. When I came before council to do the dangerous building code about a year ago, we had a hole in the code that we wanted to plug. Tim and I ended up getting that done and plugging that hole, but in that discussion, council asked that we compare the most current adopted code of the property maintenance code to our dangerous building code. In doing so, that dangerous building or that property maintenance code had tendrils and all of the rest of 15. And then in reviewing that with Justin, we decided that we needed to update all of the code language. So I went through and updated code language, and in that process, I ended up rearranging code sections and making it flow so that it defined what my job position was, and then what codes I administered, and then how I administered them, and didn't have that code section of what I administered like halfway through the code. And so it was my attempt to make it flow better and read better. I gave you a red line version and made comments in that red line version because if I had moved everything, it would have been all red. So I did my best to show you what actual code language changed. And then I just made a note on what sections changed. And then there were some sections, like the very first section was an appeal section. And then we had 2 more appeal sections at the bottom. So I combined those and streamlined that language. So I made a note in the red line version that's where that code section went. So this is just hopefully a cleaned up version of what we had before with the updates to the dangerous building code that council had asked that we do. So with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. Anybody?
I am not seeing any questions.
I saw what you were doing and I really appreciated that you moved that up because it was crazy making when I did read the original that the answer to half the questions was buried halfway through. So thank you for moving that up. That was a very good move.
Thank you. It made more sense to me. And I thought, well, if it makes sense to me, since I'm the one administering it, that it would make sense to everybody else.
It's kind of cockamamie that any code begins with appeals. I mean, I don't know where I've ever seen that. You know, appeals is last, appeals is, yeah.
I think in reviewing it, I kind of think that was a vestigial piece of code that had been morphed and moved around and cut and pasted with a bunch of different stuff over the years. And that was what floated to the top. Yeah. By virtue of maybe an odd numbering scheme or an interesting placement of a different piece of code.
Alphabetical order.
There you go. It very well could have been, actually. Some of these model codes that some of this stuff's based off are challenging to read if you care anything about grammar.
So I really want to commend you guys on getting rid of 100 or more shalls. Nicely done.
That was very difficult for me too, because that is so prevalent in my code. I read right over the top of them. Justin caught, I don't know how many of those.
Well, there's still one.
Oh, I missed one.
It's on page RS 49, method of service. Subpart 4E4, method of service. A copy will be posted in a conspicuous place.
All right, I'll find it. I'll find it and get rid of it.
Okay.
Any other?
I don't necessarily mind those exercises with you, Lisa, just running through them and agreeing on this one's going to be may, this one's must, this one's will. I feel like we're like checking off boxes and finding common ground. It's great.
Well,
it's almost like a crossword puzzle at some point.
I have to, did you laugh when you included the attachment about flagpole sizes? Because I just thought, how many times in your career are you going to have to create a spreadsheet of flagpoles and what dimension of flag goes on them?
Well, and you know, it's funny, after I got out of the work session last time, I went, well, the code we're discussing is all commercial code, so it doesn't even apply to residential anyway. And I just went, but I thought, well, but then they also made those changes in the residential code effective April 1st. So I thought, okay, well, now it makes sense. So I thought, well, it was good I did the research. So
yeah, well, and I learned a lot about flags.
I was surprised, but I thought, well, that makes sense. They have to be a certain size to,
yeah,
you know, so.
Scott probably could have answered a lot of those questions for us, but.
Okay, so just the one shall, and then I guess we're okay.
Does that even need to be called out, or is that just a Scribner's? As far as a motion?
I mean, I'm okay making the motion and making that, you know, calling that out, unless.
I think it's 6-1, half dozen of the other. You can call it out. Scott, as the city recorder, also has the ability to make slight changes like that. So however you want to structure the motion, it's fine with me.
Just call it, because there's nothing substantive about it. So let's just call it a Scribner's error and let Scott handle it. All right. So if there is no further discussion and no further questions, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending Municipal Code Chapter 15.08 building permits for the purpose of clarification and updating code language.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded for first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending Municipal Code Chapter 15.08 building permits for the purpose of clarification and updating code language. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None heard or seen. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you like to read the ordinance by title only twice?
An ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, amending Municipal Code Chapter 15.08, building permits for the purpose of clarification and updating code language. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukee, Oregon, amending Municipal Code Chapter 15.08, building permits for the purpose of clarification and updating the code language.
Mr. Stauffer, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Nicodemus.
Aye.
You guys moved on me in my head. Council President Heisey.
Aye.
Councilor Faulkner.
Aye.
Councilor Beatty.
Aye.
Mayor Gamba.
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0, ordinance 2206.
So it's 1504, not 1508. Does that make a difference?
The code,
Yes.
It makes a difference.
Sorry.
Mhm.
Did I put it down wrong?
the ordinance says 1508.
Okay.
But that's just the header. Justin, I might argue that that could be a correction because in the body of the ordinance, it does say 1504. So unless there's anybody who wants to redo the motion, I'll use my authority to amend that typographical error.
Sorry.
In the title,
That's great.
the title of the ordinance only, and then, but in the body, it says 1504. So.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for your patience with me through this. I'm not usually having to do code, so this has been a new experience for me.
Well done.
Thank you.
Okie doke.
The ordinance actually says both. It says 08 in the title line and it says 04 in the first whereas. I don't know if that matters, but just pointing at, and this is where 04 later as well. So it's right in two places. It's just.
I think the title, I think 1508 is only in the title. So I would just amend it, that one part to say 1504.
All right, if we are happy with all of that. Solid waste rates review. So discussion will be led by our Assistant Finance Director, Keith McClung.
I don't see Keith in the meeting. I see Chris Bell is here, or he was here.
Yep, Chris is here.
Oh, there's Chris. I don't see Keith though.
Well, Keith would probably just introduce Chris, I'm guessing, and let Chris carry all the water. So.
Somebody who's City of Milwaukee, is that Keith?
That's the public view. City of Milwaukee is just, that's me.
So, Chris, I'm forgetting your, which firm you're with. I saw it earlier.
Yeah, I'm here.
Can you just?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is becoming routine anymore. I think every year I show up and we talk about garbage and recycling, and interestingly enough, I wouldn't probably be here in front of you today if it wasn't for the substantial rate increase that we're seeing at Metro. So with that, the rates that we're requesting or that we're proposing to be adjusted are primarily due to the tipping fee increase associated with solid waste. And then there's two other small things associated with the cost, and that's the cost of the labor, and both collection companies that serve within the city of Milwaukee both have union contracts with Union Teamsters 212, and within those contracts stipulate a small increase. So we're adjusting for that increase for the union wages, and then a small increase for the cost of fuel. We've got one company that uses compressed natural gas, and that's Waste Management, and then the other one uses diesel. So we combined the two and looked at the projected increase for the cost of those fuels, and are proposing a modest increase for that. And then we've got two other rates that we're proposing to be added to the current rate schedule that are not there, that are comparable to other jurisdictions. And so the rate report that we submitted, the increases to residential and commercial businesses, the majority of those costs, as I was saying, are impacted by the Metro tipping fee increase. And so within the city of Milwaukee, currently 61% of the residential customers within Milwaukee subscribe to a 35-gallon cart for regular collection. And the increase that we're proposing is 4%, is $1.35. And most of that $1.35, in this case, 87 cents of that is attributed to the Metro tipping fee. And then the other 28 cents is the fuel and labor. And then on top of that's the margin and franchise fee to the hauler. So the total cost of that is $1.35 increase for the 35-gallon cart for the residential customer.
I'm seeing $1.55. Am I looking in the wrong place?
Okay, excuse me, yes, you are correct. The $1.35 is the rate increase if the rates were to go into effect on July 1st. However, since we have a delay, there is we're going to take that rate increase that would have been passed through effective July 1st, that for the 2 months, or for the 1 month, and we're spreading that over the next 11 months. So instead of $1.35, that's a 20-cent increase is being added to that rate. So yes, you are correct, Councilmember. I apologize for that. I'm looking at the rate report, and I remember when we did this, Keith said there's going to be a delay in the rate increase. So, adjust the rates accordingly.
And why exactly is that? Don't we normally do the rate increase with our regular fee schedule for the beginning of the fiscal year? Why are we?
I'm not sure. I think it's a timing issue. I think there needs to be a second reading or a second review. If you did do that, which I agree with you. It's great to have all those rates come into play, at the start of the new fiscal year, because that's when Metro's tipping fee goes into effect, and we've done it in the past. But I think it's a timing issue having to do with the second reading on the rates.
Yeah, the idea as well. Sorry, guys, I'm late. This is Keith. Also, we didn't want to present the rates tonight and then ask for approval tonight. It was have the presentation and then a discussion.
So anybody have questions or concerns or? I'll say that I did my usual exercise of talking about equity earlier in the day with Keith, and they nailed it this year. All the increases were exactly per the percentage of the tipping fee to the penny. So it's right in line with staying equitable on the various sizes and garbage production.
Yeah, the two other rates that we're requesting is a multifamily container recycling rate, and that would be there's two complexes that would be impacted within the city of Milwaukee, and both of and I'll give you a little background. When we set both of those complexes are served with a drop box for garbage. And so, in addition, when we set the rates for roll-off boxes and compactors, we did not add in a recycling component to that because it's going to vary from company to company. And some companies subscribe to service with a cart, and there are a few that don't. And so, the way the rates have been traditionally set is those companies and these two complexes receiving recycling services, and all of them right now are receiving recycling services. However, those services are being paid for by the ratepayers who currently have a container for garbage collection. And so what we're doing is we're pulling that burden off of those companies right now, and we're pushing it to those who are currently receiving that recycling service. And within the rate report, there is if you look at the commercial rate of return, it's a little lower than we anticipated for the current area within the city of Milwaukee. And when I was looking at this, I followed up with Waste Management. They gave me all of the supporting documentation, and there's a couple companies that currently receive a substantial amount of recycling service. And what we've done in the past is we've asked those companies, or when the rates are adjusted, the companies go back and look at how much service do they really need. Because 2 or 3 years ago, when the value of the material was significant for the recyclable materials, the impact of receiving those services wasn't as significant. Now that the cost of processing recycling is anywhere from $70 to $100 a ton, what we're seeing those companies, not only are they getting that collection service, but they're also getting they're not paying for that processing, the recycling. So that discrepancy really shows up. So these rates would adjust that for companies that currently have a compactor or a drop box for recycling, for garbage, would be charged for the recycling, and whatever that level of service that they need would be selected by them. The multifamily rate is right now that most jurisdictions within a Portland metropolitan area with that compactor also have that service, that fee for per unit for the additional recycling. And over the next upcoming years, Metro is pushing down a greater emphasis on diverting or doing the outreach to the multifamily complexes for greater recycling. What they're doing is they're increasing the number of containers. They're putting minimum standards as far as how many containers need to be on site. And it's a per unit basis. So what they're saying is if you receive, you know, and I'm throwing numbers off the top of my head, if you receive 50 gallons of garbage service per unit, then that unit also needs to receive 50 gallons of recycling. So they're equalizing the ratio of garbage to recycling for those complexes. And they're also increasing the amount of signs and the amount of outreach that is going to be required for those complexes. And those are going to be incurred to some degree by the jurisdictions with their education outreach programs and also by the haulers. So this is in line with what the standards that Clackamas County has for their multifamily complexes that utilize a compactor for garbage collection.
And I believe, excuse me, for Councilor Nicodemus's benefit, I believe last time we talked about solid waste rates, we had a fairly lengthy conversation about how services were kind of falling short for multifamily housing development. So I'm really glad that Metro is taking some significant steps to improve service, because we were hearing from residents that it wasn't measuring up, that they were unable to successfully recycle. So this is.
And if that is the case, I know that Milwaukee right now falls under the education outreach with Clackamas County, and I know that they've got a pretty robust staff on there. And when we were talking about these different changes, and I was a little surprised that rate wasn't already included in the city of Milwaukee, because that's something that's been in Clackamas County's rate schedule for quite some time. So just adding that's comparable with what the county is already providing.
Yeah, and the thing we're still hearing from residents in multifamily units is that they can't take advantage of our bulky waste days. But I don't actually know that discussion is part of what we talk about here. I think that's part of what we negotiate with the waste haulers. So I'm just mentioning it for anyone out in the audience who might be listening and wondering what it would take to get that bulky waste day available to them if they're in a large apartment complex.
I know that that's actually one of the issues that Metro has taken a look at as far as bulky waste, because from my understanding of multifamily, you know, every month there's you know, people coming and leaving, and so you're always going to have a perpetual bulky waste, you know, set out week, you know, whether it's a week or it's every day, and typically that, you know, that cost, that burden falls on the complex manager or management, and so I'm hearing from some of the cities that some unit managers don't think that's their problem, that, you know, they don't provide an adequate level of service to take care of the bulky waste. So that's, you know, individual unit by unit basis. But I know that Metro is, and Clackamas County, even more importantly, are taking a look at that bulky waste issue and trying to address it.
Thanks for that information. And Council President Heisey, I would have raised it if you didn't, because I definitely think that we do need to, I don't know how to address it. I just think that we do need to at least acknowledge that every year we hear that that same concern. And I guess I just would want to make sure if we can stay apprised of that, that would be really helpful. I mean, I want to make sure that it's something that isn't just a benefit to, you know, the unit managers, but would be, you know, something that could actually be accessed by folks, you know, in the apartments as well. I mean, not just, I'm thinking about not just turnover, of course, but, you know, for any of us who need, you know, that resource. We can't necessarily rent a truck. We don't have that ability, you know.
Yeah, and the point that the managers are making about it being an ongoing need in apartments is also true for houses. I don't actually see a substantial difference in the need, you know. So I think it's an ongoing concern, and I'm glad to hear Metro's taking steps about thinking through that.
So those are what we're proposing, and like Keith addressed, it is going to, the rate increase is going to be delayed, depending on the approval by City Council. So that's why there is the difference between $1.35 and $1.55 in the rate schedule. And same correlating adjustment for commercial collection also.
Any other questions, comments?
No, I just missed those 3 or 4 years where they didn't go up at all. They've gone up every year for a while now. So, yeah, but I realize that's not in our control.
And I'm not doing very well with that button. And I think you're all aware of this, but Metro is trying to figure out how to, and substantial work has gone into at the state level, figuring out how we shift the burden of waste generation from the consumer to the people who are creating it in the first place, which is really where it belongs. And it's going to take some increments to get there, but asking individuals and in their households to pay more and more for garbage service when they are being hit with more and more packaging and more single use, this, that, and the other thing, and more things that are being created at the production level of goods is inequitable. And that's just the way of it. I'm not saying that we don't also need to think about our consumeristic patterns and buy less, but when we buy things, they shouldn't be packaged in big, bulky, trashy things that you can't easily recycle. So,
nor should they be designed to die after a year of use.
Yeah, or like mattresses, which is the very first thing that Metro is trying to make recyclable and to tie back into the loop, made of entirely recyclable materials. So if you have the companies who are making those mattresses take responsibility for the recycling rather than the consumer taking responsibility, it just makes a lot of sense in a multiplicity of ways. So it's the long game, but I think that's hopefully the way we get to a place where our rates aren't jumping every time we talk about this.
And solve bigger problems even than that. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, Chris, thank you. Keith, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good work. I appreciate the effort on equitability.
Thank you.
All right, our next item on the agenda is the Clackamas Cities Association dinner, a discussion. This will be led by our city recorder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I'm here and the camera's doing something. Anyway, thank you all. I'm gonna ask you a burning question about Clackamas cities. I'll start with a brief overview. There are 12 cities in our fair county, and in pre-pandemic years, for about half the year on a monthly basis, those cities get together for a time for the local elected city officials, and usually the county commission, sometimes Metro folks attend, time to get together and to hear and talk about local issues. They've ranged the gamut from having secretaries of state present to city staff talk about broadband in Sandy and different economic development activities around the county. And so the city of Milwaukee has done its fair share of hosting this monthly for half the year dinner of local elected leaders. In the last 5 years, I think 3 of those times were the legislative preview panel. You may remember we hosted at Bob's Red Mill and included various members of the county's legislative delegation. That was in January for 3 or 4 years in a row. And then we shifted in 2019 to a walking tour of downtown Milwaukee. As we all know, there's a lot of activity and there has been a lot of construction. And so the intention there was to highlight all that was going on in our downtown. The pandemic hit, but before that, we had plans to do walking tour take 2. Last June, we were supposed to have hosted the dinner and with an idea we were gonna tour the downtown again. That didn't happen. And as you know, no city has hosted a Clackamas Cities dinner for the duration of the last 15 months. I reached out to Lake Oswego, which at present time is coordinating the calendar for Clackamas City's dinners, confirmed that there's been no talk or requests to change the previously assigned order. So as things stand, June of 2021 was supposed to be hosted by Lake Oswego. They're not doing that. So the next one up on the calendar is our very own city of Milwaukee for October. The last time we visited about this, earlier 2020, there was a vague plan that coming off of a revisit of downtown, a second walking tour to see how things had changed, we were going to potentially do something out at community college. But I would probably venture to guess that given what is all that's happened, we may want to revisit that discussion. So Clackamas Cities, it's a dinner that we've hosted and we're on tap to host again. My first question to City Council at this point, given where the world is in reopening, Clackamas County is moving to lower risk level for the pandemic. Other restrictions may be easing soon, and we'll talk about that in the next item. But for now, the world is changing, and it's conceivable that we can potentially do it. So my first question is quite simply, is City Council interested at this point in looking at hosting Clackamas City's dinner in October 2021? And I could add that there's a lot of events happening, but I am comfortable in saying that staff could logistically put something together. But
if no one else wants to weigh in, I think it would be good for the cities to, I don't even think we would have to do some, program per se. None of us have seen each other for whatever, 2 years. And I think just the opportunity for the various councils to talk and to catch up and find out what's going on. I mean, we've had a pandemic and an ice storm and fires, and there's a lot to catch up on. So I think it would be great, and it would be cool if we had it out at the college.
Well, that's an interesting idea that, I mean, I was feeling like, it's, I'd rather do one in the nice weather where we could be outside and blah, blah, blah. But if you wanted to do something where we didn't put on a program, but rather like every city had 10 minutes to talk or something, where it was kind of a roundtable thing as opposed to us presenting. I mean, there might be some value in that. I don't know. I'm torn. I mean, I feel like it takes a lot of staff time. And, there's, if we're not doing a walking tour, then it's sort of, I'm feeling less compelled about it, but you make a good point about just the value of creating a forum where the different cities can get together. I don't know what the meal kind of restrictions are going to look like by October. Will we be eating in buffet line kind of things, or will we have to have a plated dinner or box dinner or whatever? So, I mean, there seems like variables there too, but.
So I do want to mention that at the last C4 meeting, we talked about the retreat that C4 usually does, and the staff recommendation was that we do some hybrid model where we do a little bit of socializing and then go back to Zoom. And the feedback was actually, no, we'd like the full retreat, please. So I think the eagerness to be with each other is real amongst the cities and to spend time together. And I think it would be nice if we could minimize the amount of staff work if possible. And I do think we have a lot to do. The one thing about doing it out at the college that occurs to me is that how far are we really going to be from Linwood? So if we did want to at least do, I do think it's helpful to have some presentation to kind of anchor the conversation to some degree. just because sometimes it, I don't know. I'm enough of an introvert that it's good to have something to react to, even if it's just the jumping off point. So maybe that's where this is coming from. But I'm wondering if it would be possible to have people do a little drive-through of Linwood on their way to the college, and then we can have a short presentation on that, and then just have some questions prepared to kind of stimulate conversation at the tables. I don't know. I'm thinking off the top of my head here.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. The other one that occurred to me, since we all experienced it to one degree or another, is some discussion about resilience around our electrical system. And, every city, every year tears up a street or two and rebuilds it, right? And that's the opportunity to be laying conduit to eventually start undergrounding more of our electrical utility. And I think, if we have cities that are sort of bought into that concept, and then we can start having conversations with PGE and then with the legislature to come up with some funding, I think that could get the ball rolling. That was what I was originally going to suggest, was to have that conversation start there. But I'm fine with talking about Linwood and active transportation, or about allowing each city to just talk about whatever they want to talk about for 10 minutes.
Two things. One, we still can't make a reservation at any of the sites where we would need to make a reservation to have the dinner, including the community college. So we'll put it down as the primary desired location, but we'll have to base it on openings. The second piece is this could also, depending on what happens in Congress, be a nice link to the infrastructure package. So a discussion, even if it's a brief one from each of the cities where they're talking about what they're planning on doing. We recently had a conversation with all the Clackamas cities about how they're planning on spending their ARPA funds. And it was actually really helpful before the funds were solidified to understand what other cities were going to be doing in the area. So we don't know the timing of those pieces yet, but it sounds like the general is yes, you'd like to do something. Ideally, you would like it to be probably up at the community college as a way to sort of highlight this addition to our community. And that we can minimize the staff time in terms of the presentation, but you'd still like to have at least some discussion. Is that fair?
Yeah, and we can keep kicking around ideas. The other thing I'd throw out, I think we could get this to fit in the library's big room. If we can't get it, no, we don't think you can fit it in that?
Well, I mean, that's definitely more of a concern for me. The room at the Clackamas County, at the community college is much bigger, a lot more doors. I don't know, are we going to be requiring proof of vaccination? I don't think that we should be cramming people in, we just reached 65% in Clackamas County. Maybe that's higher among elected officials. I don't know. I have questions for the group about that question,
Well, and I also think that we don't know what's going to happen this fall. And the last year, the summer was better, and then we slid into fall with possibly a new variant. So I think all of this, if we can at least minimize staff time from the planning process, we can cancel something somewhat quickly. But when we were talking about using the library, we were actually going to move shelves.
Oh.
So I don't think that we're going to be able to host something at that site for this, at least, based on what Councilor Faulkner just said.
I'll also throw out there that if we wanted to really minimize staff time, and we can do it at the community college, we could invite Clackamas Community College to talk about some stuff and just be the hosting host, I guess. But they're doing a ton of stuff. The cities are really invested in their work. Bridget Daisy from the Workforce Partnership has come and given a couple of presentations to C4 over the past year. So I think there's some interest among the cities in an ongoing education. You know, we could even have the Prosper folks come and talk about what they learned from the Prosper project in Milwaukee and in other communities. So that could be another angle to just think about ways to not have it take up too much space in city staff's lives.
Councilor Faulkner, just because I wanted to make sure that I fully heard you, would you prefer to skip it altogether, or are you okay in a larger space?
I think a larger space with with lots of ventilation, I think, minimizes the risk substantially. I do think that we need to grapple with the question of, where we are, where rates are, what we do with vaccination and masks. I mean, there's still immune compromised people who there's still a level of protection. We're not going to be completely out of the woods. My daughter will not be vaccinated by then.
And this actually also, sorry, Scott, go for it.
I was going to summarize, Ann, you go ahead.
I was just going to actually connect this to the second conversation we're going to have tonight, because I think that these two pieces are playing in together. We're expecting that the governor will be lifting the mask mandate next week. And we are planning on coming back into person for meetings. So I want to talk about the mask part. I'm going to defer the other to Scott. But are you interested in having people wear masks if they're members of the public coming into the space? Do you all want to be wearing masks? And what are your feelings about staff wearing masks in this space?
Councilor in chambers, you're saying?
In chambers.
I'll go. My personal view is people should be masking coming in and out, moving around the building, passing in hallways and stuff. Once they're seated in the meeting room, at the dais, whatever, if they're able to keep a reasonable distance, then I think it's okay to be unmasked.
I think all of us are vaccinated, so that, the nearness that we will be to each other is acceptable without masks. So, but we might want to think about spreading the audience chairs or, I don't know, that's a can of worms, but asking if people have been vaccinated. I'm doing a tour with one of our big industrial companies here next week, and they are requiring that I show I've been vaccinated before that tour occurs. So it's not unheard of.
No, it's not. I mean, I don't know how that changes with, an executive order that might come down, but, I just went to a McMinimans 2 weekends ago, and if you show proof of vaccination, you can take off your mask once you're inside, but they still ask you to, wear it in certain areas where people congregate. So, I mean, I think if we can provide, reasonable sort of distancing, ability for people to distance and, yeah.
Well, and we will still have the camera option that Scott's using tonight, which we're testing tonight, so that individuals who can't be physically present are able to connect through the Zoom channel. So we're meeting the public meetings laws of giving everyone access, even if they're not interested or unwilling to wear a mask. So I think that there are some solutions that are different than a general staff meeting or something else that we would be holding. And if you all want to, we have no concerns about spacing the chairs. I don't have any concerns with staff wearing a mask until they're seated or at the dais and speaking. I think that's totally fine. I will probably leave a mask on while I'm on the dais unless I am speaking, just because I'll be sitting there for the most part, not saying a whole lot during the meeting. So I think the other piece that if anyone's watching tonight that I need to say is if you want to wear a mask, you're also welcome to. So whether or not we require it or whether or not we do check for vaccination cards. Everyone is more than welcome to continue to show up in a mask if it feels safer or more comfortable for you. So for that piece of the meeting, we're going to come back to you probably in August to talk about the meal. But we will proceed with trying to secure a location, trying to make sure it's large. So probably that main room over at the community college, if we can get it. We'll schedule it for that night. We'll work on an invitation. We will have a low intensity presentation, or we'll do a roundtable. Councillor Heisey will talk to the college about their interest in having a forum like that. And we'll know more about the infrastructure package as we get closer as well. So I think all those things work. By August, we'll be able to come back to you and say, where are you at? Here's where we are with numbers. This is where vaccinations are. What's your comfort level at that point in that space? But no matter what, a larger space is not harmful. Does that work? Okay.
I want to circle back real quick to your comment about making sure people know that they're welcome to wear masks. I would love to see some signage, if Jordan can make up something cool and cutesy, that we put outside of chambers or at the entrance to City Hall, whatever it is, to remind people that that is a welcome option, and that there's that. I'm concerned about people feeling like they are embarrassed or ashamed to do the thing that is right for them, or being concerned that they will be discriminated against if they choose to wear a mask. So I think having some really clear language that we welcome you doing whatever you need to do to feel safe is really important for us to do as soon as we start transitioning out of the mask mandate. Because that's just something I think we really need to make sure people know.
We'll pass that along to the team. I'm going to turn it over to Scott to talk about the second half of our meeting in person conversation.
First of all, I've been playing with this all night. You may have noticed. You can still hear me, but now you can see the room, and I'm sitting here by myself, perhaps for the last time. Anyway, just wanted to give a quick update. We had more testing today. Kathy, I still remember that you want to help us test, and others. So we're getting there. We were able to connect most of it. There's something about 21st century Zoom technology and this older PA system in here that didn't want to play nice together today. So it's not all put together, but we're getting there. We're getting there. So it's good news on that front. I was going to also mention that House Bill 2560 was signed by the governor yesterday. And you may not be familiar with it, but that bill requires now that all public meetings of public bodies, which our city council and our boards and committees and such qualify as, are required when reasonable to provide a virtual option for attending meetings. Zoom is here to stay, Zoom and or a conference phone, whether we love it or not. So we all have to get here at some point. So that's fun. The second part what Ann was talking about was calendar. Previously, council expressed interest in returning on July 13th for a study session. And we started thinking about what that would look like for that agenda. And it wasn't that it's so much we couldn't do that for the agenda, but you may be familiar with that old second Tuesday scheduling conflict that the city council has with the planning commission. And that is still a thing. And it gets really complicated when we try to put together a hybrid meeting outside of this room at the moment. And this room on the second Tuesday of July is still needed for the Planning Commission. They will be meeting on Zoom, but staff will be sitting where I am, and the AV booth is right there. So we still have this issue on the second Tuesday of the month. So we're curious if council would be okay with delaying our in-person return till July 20th, which we think might be a nice low-key return with council retreat, primarily for that work in regular session time, and then a brief regular session there in the middle. So our first question is council okay waiting until July 20th and leaving the July 13th study session on Zoom?
Yes.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And then to the larger question, which going forward for study sessions in general, given the rub with the Planning Commission, how does council feel perhaps about thinking about leaving all study sessions or most study sessions on Zoom? Because it would satisfy the public meeting law and we wouldn't have to find a space. We could certainly do, special sessions when we need to. We could be in person at different places, but just throwing it out there that we'll be on Zoom anyway.
And the reason we were thinking about this for study sessions is we do not have a public comment period. So there's less concern about making sure there are two ways for people to connect in. It does not mean they couldn't be special speakers or have public comment on Zoom if you all were on study session. It's just less likely for study sessions that you would be taking public comment.
I'm fine with that.
It's okay. Study sessions are about conversations, and as good as we're all getting at this, they're still weird and stilted, and it's hard to read. I mean, I try and catch when I see people make some motion like they want to talk, and I try and catch it, but I know I'm missing a lot, and it's hard like this. I personally would rather be back in person for most of those things. It was my recollection that we specifically set the library big room up for this kind of technology, did we not?
Yeah, we did, but there's a couple of problems. One is right now the library room is going to be the storage location to make enough room for the public to be in the building safely. So there will be furniture in it for a while. And I don't know how long that is because it's all based on as we open up what that looks like. If we were starting this like in September, I probably would have a better answer for you, and we would be working towards getting the technology Scott's using tonight into more buildings. But right now I have this technology in one spot. So it's also possible that if you all were interested in trying to solve this long-term so that you could be in person, but were willing to give us the study sessions in July and August, that by September we would be in a better position to be able to open it up more for study sessions and not kick out the Planning Commission.
I'm okay with that. I just didn't want it to be indefinite.
Well, and the nice thing is that this can be an ongoing conversation for you all now, forever. This doesn't have to be decided tonight. There have been some benefits for individuals who have children at home to not have to come up with childcare every meeting, and that includes for staff. So there are reasons why this makes some sense for us in the long term. However, I don't know how our in-person communication will change in the coming months, and we will have the tools in place forever. Hopefully, or hopefully they'll even get better. So for right now, let's plan on the summer study sessions being via Zoom, and that we will come up with some other solutions if need be, i.e. the library space going into the fall, but we can keep talking about that too. I did see at least one council member who has a small child nodding as I was speaking as well. So this is, I think, just a balancing act for some of us.
I would just agree with Ann that I think technology is getting there, and more of our neighbors are going to be doing this too, have to do this too. And so we'll figure it out. I think that's a good compromise to come back and see where we are in September. And also, we're still on that schedule once a quarter. Study sessions are off air and not recorded, which means all I have to do is wherever we meet, set up a Zoom so that the public can still come in that way, and we won't have to worry about the broadcasting part of it. So.
I think that's everything we had for those two agenda items tonight, Mayor.
All right. Well, we have council report next on the agenda. We don't have our legislative item. Just to catch everybody up a little bit on what's happening with some of our priority bills. One is moving. No guarantees, obviously, but it looks more promising than not, and that still carries our green tariff necessity. However, 23, Kathy, help me out. The REACH bill.
Numbers. I'm going to look at
2348, is that it?
Let me see if I can find an email from Dave Van Hoff.
Anyway, the REACH bill.
2398, yes, you were right.
Close. The REACH code bill is pretty stalled out. Karen texted me that she's been trying to get it out of committee. It's stuck in Ways and Means, and it has to be assigned to a subcommittee in order to do anything. And they have been refusing to assign it. And there are some, in my personal opinion, ugly political reasons for that. So it is, at this point, unlikely that that bill is going to get to the floor. And in my conversations with Senator Taylor this afternoon, it sounds like it's going to be a lot heavier lift than we thought, just across the board. So unless a miracle occurs sometime in the next few days, that will be something we'll need to concentrate on over the summer with our various legislative contacts, and apparently help educate more of the legislature, because this apparently scares people for some unknown reason.
And I'll just add that I've seen OLCV, OEC, Oregon Environmental Council, I think the Oregon Sierra Club, all of the environmental groups are advocating for their members to step up on 2398 and on HB 2021. So it's not just the clean energy bill that has public support. There's strong public support for amending the building codes. So I'm heartened that we've gotten to the place where the public education piece is looking really good. I think people are making that connection. And it may be that we need to, if this is dead in the water, work with some of those partners to do some of that legislator outreach and education work, because I think we might be able to find some good help.
Yeah, and we'll need to work with the unions that will work with us on this, because there's a handful that are frankly making stuff up that's not real to kill this. So it's, I don't know, some kind of backroom deal with the home builders.
Yeah.
Or Northwest Natural, but I'm guessing home builders.
Yeah.
So it's an important bill, and it should have been a slam dunk, because it wasn't forcing anybody to do anything. It's just an allowing bill, and it is a big deal. And we have a lot of construction, barring all the increases in costs. We've got a lot of construction going on, and so do a lot of other cities. And every building that's built less efficiently than it could be is going to be that less efficient for the rest of its life.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at. 784, which also has our green tariff language, and it has some language that would help pay for resiliency work on the part of PGE, which could lead to what I was talking about earlier, with some hardening of the system. Still apparently has legs. That's not dead in the water. There was a negotiation between Northwest Natural and the coalition. We have two amendments, two identical amendments offered by two different senators. I don't know how that's going to play out, but they do the same thing, which is fix the major problems we had with Northwest Natural's amendments. So that may actually still happen. That's what I know right now.
And to the extent that anyone is interested in House Bill 3055, which I mentioned before as something that C4 has talked about and that the county is lobbying for, that would create more flexibility in the funding and help, basically, in short, help get the I-205 expansion underway. All I can tell you is that I'm getting an update tomorrow morning. So I'm not going to speak out of turn because I know things change quickly. But I'll email you about it if you want me to.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Anybody else? Any updates on any bills they're watching? No? Any other council announcements? Nope. All righty. Well, I will see probably all of you, if not most of you at least, Juneteenth. And I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.